We have here two pastels that are going to be included into our exhibition, Claude Monet, The Truth of Nature. And Sarah, this is actually a treat for our visitors because the exhibition will have oils on canvas, but only two pastels. These works that were done at the beginning of his career really shows the experimentation phase, and he'll continue to experiment throughout his life. But as far as medium, works on paper are not prominent in his output. So I feel that this is actually going to enrich and deepen the experience, especially as this will be at the beginning, really, when we explore the early career of Monet.
I absolutely agree. I think there's a lot to be said for artists who sort of start to experiment with what they want their overall composition to be with preparatory drawings. And even though Monet may have denied it in his lifetime, preparatory drawings certainly were a big part of his process.
And I find interesting that Monet chooses, especially at the beginning of his career, this medium, because this is actually a medium for which French artists in the 18th century were known for. Yes. Actually, some of the greatest pastelists were French. So he's, in a way, at the beginning, placing himself in line with tradition, experimenting with something that really was part of the French tradition. And here in particular, it's not only about the medium, but it's also about the composition. You have this sort of road leading in, which is very much was a typical composition, a traditional composition, because it leads your eye into, and it sort of helps with the depth of the painting.
Monet was using, at least for these two, a chalk pastel. So it's a fairly friable surface, and so for that reason we want to make sure that we can provide as much protection to them as possible. And we not only the frame provides protection to the edges, but also there's a special kind of glazing or surface glass over the front of each of them. In terms of condition, they're both very stable. Once upon a time when I did examine them unframed, the paper support was very robust and didn't show any signs of discoloration or cracking or anything like that along the edges. And the pastel itself is also very stable. There aren't any areas where it's been thickly applied where it started to sort of crack or crumble. So one thing that we like to do to provide preservation for our pastels is provide protection to the surface, which is very vulnerable to abrasions, particularly if it's not behind glass. And we use a specially engineered glass that is actually acrylic, but it has less static charge than glass itself. It's unbreakable, which means the framing package overall is lighter weight and it's safer to handle and ship that way. I'm going to turn around to the back, and this is what we call a microclimate envelope. And so the perimeter, beginning on a narrow part of the face of the glazing, is sealed with this material that's an aluminum laminate known as Marble Seal. And so by doing this, we provide an environmental barrier so that the vulnerable paper and pastel are never subject to extremes and changes in relative humidity. So I don't worry so much about that here at the museum because we have very stable controls, but we do loan our pastels, and when they are crated, put into freight, and then shipped to a different country where the temperature and relative humidity may be different, and this provides a lot of buffering for that.